it's your favorite nurse, Jasmine, and I'm back today with another nursing video. And today's video is going to be all about new grads in the ICU. So now that a lot of you have recently graduated or you are coming up on your last semester of school, a lot of people are trying to figure out which direction they want to go. I am an ICU nurse and I have also been a preceptor to a new grad. So I felt like I could give you guys quite a bit of information on what it's like to be a new grad in the ICU. So if you are interested, please continue to watch. ICU nurse for the past 3 years, and I actually entered the ICU as a new grad, as well as I have precepted a new grad, which she was freaking amazing. And although I am not like a professional preceptor and I don't precept every new grad, I do feel like I can bring you guys enough information to kind of let you know what it's like to be an ICU nurse as a new grad. As far as getting into the ICU, that can be very tricky, and it's not an option for everybody. The way that I was able to get into the ICU as a new grad is when I did my critical care rotation or my acute care rotation, I actually got to meet the director. She was new to the unit. She was the new director of the unit, and she was kind of watching me for the first couple of weeks, and then she asked me if I would be interested in doing a new grad position once I graduated. So I was able to get into the ICU through my clinicals. However, there was quite a few of us who actually went to the ICU that I entered, and it was basically they needed help. It was a hospital that not a lot of people like to work at, and it was simply because it was located in a very underprivileged area. So the patient population was it was a lot of homeless people, a lot of illegal immigrants, a lot of people that live below the poverty line, a poor patient population, and a lot of people just didn't want to work in that area. They want to go to the patient population that is a lot more bougie, a lot more fancy. The hospitals are fancier, the equipment is more up to date, the rooms are nicer. Our ICU was not the best ICU as far as appearance. We did not get a lot of fundings. Our equipment was very outdated. Our pumps were like old school pumps, and it was just not what a lot of people wanted. But for me, I didn't care what the ICU looked like as long as I was going to get good experience and my preceptors were nice. Like, that's all I wanted, and it was safe for my license, and that hospital was. I legit learned so many things, but it was definitely a hard place to work. So sometimes in order for you to get into the ICU, you might have to go to a hospital that is more like a county hospital, is more in a area that a lot of people don't want to drive to. Not saying that the nicer, fancier hospitals don't allow new grads. They do. It's just really hard to get into because everybody wants to apply there, and in that instance, you have to go in there and kill your interview. That's just it. You have to go in, you got to be on top of your game. I have 2 videos on how to do your resume, how to prepare for your interview, and all that other stuff on my channel, so make sure to check those out. But you just have to put your best foot forward, be super prepared for your interview, dress professional, and sell yourself like there's no tomorrow. As a new nurse in the ICU, most places require 16 weeks of orientation. So you go to your regular hospital orientation, those 2 weeks don't count. Those are just like getting familiar with the hospital, going over like rules, regulations, parking, security, all the boring stuff that no one really cares about. But we all have to do it. Those 2 weeks don't count. The nursing orientation is when you are one-on-one with your preceptors. You guys take the same patients and you basically learn how to become a nurse. I ended up having 2 preceptors because my first preceptor ended up going to a different specialty. She left ICU altogether. She went to another specialty and relocated to another hospital. And I switched to a male preceptor, and they both were fantastic. They were so smart, they were so nice, so helpful, and your preceptor plays a big role in it. If you get a mean, nasty preceptor, you just have to speak up and either say, hey, is there a problem? Did you not want a new grad? Did you not want a precept? Like, if there's an issue, please let me know so that way we can address it. Or if you just don't want to teach me, let me know so that way I can talk to the director and get another preceptor. Because basically that preceptor is teaching you how to become a nurse, how to think critically, how to be 2 steps ahead, and think about ways you can fix situations before they even happen. And if you do not have a good preceptor, you will be a crappy nurse and you will basically drown once you get out on your own. So definitely, if you're having problems with your preceptor, you need to speak up, address them first in a professional way, and then take it to your director if nothing gets resolved, because that can make or break your career as an ICU nurse. You go through 16 weeks of somebody teaching you how to do everything, how to critically think about your medications, how to do patient care, how to do a complete bed bath while your patient's in the bed, how to manage your vent, how to suction, how to do every single thing you need to learn, as well as how to chart properly to make sure that if you did it, it was charted, it is recorded, so that way if you ever come into court 10 years later, you know exactly what was going on with that patient based off of your charting process. So that is basically what your 16 weeks consists of. And you start off by shadowing, and then eventually you merge into you taking one patient, and then eventually you merge into you taking care of both of your patients or 3 of your patients. And your preceptor is basically following behind you to make sure you're doing everything correct, and they're also your resource to, if you have questions, they are there. That is a time where if you don't know something, you ask. And even once you come off of orientation, because you will encounter patients that you didn't take care of while you were on orientation, ask questions. Ask. Like, that is one thing that I highly suggest. Always ask questions. There's no stupid questions, regardless of how dumb it might sound or you think it might sound. Ask as many questions as you can think of, because that is a time where if you have the possibility of doing something wrong, you have somebody there that will prevent you from doing it. But once you're out on your own, if you don't ask questions and you do something wrong, you can potentially kill a patient. So make sure you are always asking questions. I'm not saying not to go in confident, but don't go into it thinking that you know it all, because those are the nurses that usually do something that potentially causes them to lose their license, and I have seen it. So don't go in there overly cocky, like, I was a straight A nursing student, I know how to do everything, you don't need to teach me nothing, because I'm telling you, you could potentially be in a position where your license could be on the line. As far as the other nurses, there are a lot of other nurses, senior nurses, and I say other nurses meaning nurses from 1 year of experience to 5 to 10 years of experience, to nurses who have been nurses over 20 years who do not like new grads. And it is nothing personal against you. It is simply new grads take a long time to teach. They take a long time to come off of orientation, which means you are, that 16 weeks, you are down a person that can provide patient care on their own, which puts other nurses in the position of having to take more than what the regular nurse to patient ratio is in the ICU. Most of the time, nurses are 1-to-1. You can be 2-to-1 if your patient is like an open heart patient with ECMO and all that other stuff. Now you can have 2 nurses to 1 patient because that's what it requires. If you are taking care of a hypothermia patient, a CRT patient, those are patients that are usually 1-to-1. But the regular nurse patient ratio is a 2-to-1. So if you can have 2 vents, or you can have 2 critical patients like a BiPAP event, it just depends. But sometimes you can show up to work and you have 3 patients, and it can be a 3-to-1. So it just all depends on what your staffing is. And usually I can tell you ICUs are understaffed. I think majority of the nursing units are understaffed, and that just plays a role into the patient care. So if you have a new grad, of course, most of the time they're not going to give you 3 patients. They're going to stick to your 2 patients. Staffing is what makes other nurses really not like new grads, and it's just like, oh my God, it's going to take them so long to train. It is basically because most new grads don't make it. And not saying it like, oh my gosh, I am so above you guys because I made it through ICU. It is just most of the time they realize that ICU is not what they want to do. They don't want to take care of vented patients. They don't want to deal with the doctors in a critical care setting, because that can become very intimidating. And sometimes if you are a new grad and you haven't passed NCLEX yet, sometimes you get to start and you're working as a new grad nurse, and then you don't pass NCLEX and then you lose your job. And some people, they don't catch on. They can't use those critical thinking skills. They just don't have it. And then that's when you talk to the director and you talk to the new grad, and you guys come to the conclusion that ICU isn't just for them, and they recommend maybe you go to a step down unit, a med surg unit, a tele unit, get a little bit more experience, and then try ICU again. And that is completely okay. Everyone is just a little different. But like I said, there's a lot of things that play into new grads really not making it on their own. So as a new grad, you are still required to take classes, and they are called critical care classes. They kind of reiterate everything that you learn in nursing school, but put it in a critical care aspect. So you go over respiratory, cardio, and during cardio you do your EKG classes. They teach you how to read EKGs, because while you're in the ICU, you need to be able to read your rhythms. You need to know if your patient goes from sinus tach to SVT, or if it's not SVT and it is strictly sinus tach with a high rate. If your patient goes to AFib RVR, and sometimes you think it might be sinus tach, but it's AFib with RVR, and you need to do amio, or you need to try a low pressor, or you need to know these things. When your patient converted, you need to know, because the monitors doesn't always tell you. Sometimes they'll just beep. And sometimes, you know, your patient will be throwing PVCs and you're like, oh my gosh, why are they starting to have so many PVCs? Is it your electrolytes? Okay, well, we've corrected those things, but now my PVCs has turned to BTAC. Like, you need to be able to know these things, especially if you encounter a patient that codes. These are things you need to know once the doctors and residents and med students and all these people come into the room and they're like, what happened to the patient? You need to be able to give a quick head to toe assessment. You need to be able to tell why they came into the hospital, what you've been doing. Did they go into PEA? Did they Brady down? Did they just go asystole? And you need to be able to be like, okay, we've already pushed an epi, we already pushed a bicarb, and do all of these things while your patient is receiving CPR and life-saving measures. Along with your patient coding, if they do not make it, you are responsible for postmortem care. Sometimes families, if they suspect that their loved one is not going to make it, they already have funeral arrangements. They already know what mortuary they're going to go to. So the funeral home can either come and pick them up, or sometimes it is a sudden thing and they didn't expect it, and you allow them to take some time with their loved ones to say their goodbyes. But you need to make sure that they're also cleaned up and look the best that they can in that situation. And once they're done, you are responsible for taking them down to the morgue. Sometimes if you're on night shift, you got to take them to the morgue yourself. If you are day shift, transportation usually will come pick the patient up and take them to the morgue. It just depends on what shift that you're working. So you encounter a lot. You will learn how to talk to families. You will learn how to break bad news to family members. You need to also explain to them what is going on with the vent in layman's terms without using medical terminology. You will have to advocate for your patient. If they are causing more stress to your patient, sometimes you will have to remove family members from the room. Sometimes you will have to call security on families. It is a lot that goes into being an ICU nurse, but if it is something that you are truly passionate about, you will enjoy every single moment of it. You learn to titrate drips. You learn to have multiple drips. Sometimes you have multiple pumps going, and you have levo, vaso, neo, dopa, dobutamine. Like, there's so many things that can be going on, along with antibiotics, along with your maintenance fluids, along with placing NG tubes so that way you can give your patient nutrients through your kangaroo pump. There are so many things that you have to learn to do, and no one expects you to learn it during just those 16 weeks of orientation, but that is the time to learn everything and to ask questions. On my nursing website, I have a notebook, pen lights, and scissors, clipboards. Those are things that you need while you're on orientation. Even if you have 2 meds, you can print out information from Crames on Demand to go home and study, which I suggest you study every night. If you take care of an acute renal patient, go home and look over the process of the kidneys, what stage of renal failure that they're in, and learn about it, so that way when your next patient comes, there's a little bit more information that you know, which gives you the opportunity to give that patient even better care than when you knew absolutely nothing about that. And that goes with anything. I learned so much about different disease processes once I was off of orientation versus when I was on orientation, because I never had those patients. You also learn to do CMO, or which is comfort measures only, where patients have decided they don't want to be coded if their heart stops. They don't want their family to no longer be intubated, and you take care of them during their last hours of life before they pass away. Some doctors, especially in the ICU setting, they will know that you're new because they're used to talking to the nurses that they're comfortable with. And sometimes they will be mean to you and they will question you to see what you know. They don't want a nurse that knows absolutely nothing to be taking care of their patients. Make sure you know everything about your patients. And some doctors will, I remember this one doctor, he does not like for you to read off of a brain. He will come in there and talk to you, and if you pull off your report or your brain or whatever you use to write down the information on your patient, and you pull it out, he will legit push your hand down. And not in a mean way, but he will like, no, these are things that you should know about your patient. And he just tries to teach you, and I absolutely love that about him. He will like, no, tell me what you know, because he knows his patients. So he wants to know what you know. So you need to get really good with knowing your patients head to toe. You legit have 2 patients. Some instances you have 1. Some cases you have 3. But you need to know as much as you can about them, why they came in, where they from, their family situation, head to toe assessments, where their IVs are, what IVs they have running, what they are running at, what their basic labs are. These are the things that they want to know. And that is what you will learn how to do. So your first year of nursing is always the hardest, and that is your new grad year. Your year comes up really quick, but it is very, very hard. And I remember I used to cry before going to work sometimes, just because I hated some of the people that I worked with, and I felt like I just was not learning anything. And not until legit a couple of months after my 1-year mark did I realize, like, dang, I'm doing pretty good. Like, all right, Jasmine, you getting the hang of this. But like, your first year is going to be a rough year because it's your learning year. You will get tested. You will come against a lot of obstacles, and that is just a part of first year. And it is not like nurses being mean to you and nurses eating their youngs. Not every nurse is like that. Some of the old bitter ones, they are. There's really nothing you can do about it. Me, I address issues. I don't let anybody run over me, because at the end of the day, I'm an adult, and if I respect you, you should respect me. And that is just my personality. If you have an issue with me, address it with me. But I don't do the whole, oh, let's talk about such and such, or I don't like her because she, I don't do all that. At the end of the day, you're an adult. Address me as an adult. Talk to me if you have an issue. But there are some people that are just passive, and they are not confrontational, and it's even harder for them. First year is just going to be a hard year. It is going to be hard. It's going to be trying. Even if everyone loves you, it is just going to be a difficult year, because you're going to feel like a fish out of water, and there's just a lot going on, and you need to learn how to grasp it. And it will come with time. A lot of people get into the ICU and they just realize it's not for them, and that's okay. That is the beauty of nursing. There's so many avenues that you can take, and there's so many different places you can work, that if you don't like the ICU, don't stay. Don't stay just to say that you're an ICU nurse. You need to find something that you love doing and that you enjoy doing. You give patients the best quality care, and ICU is not for everybody, so that's fine. It's okay. You don't have to do it. Okay guys, so this is going to wrap up my video on new grad nurses in the ICU. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know it was a very long talky video, but I just tried to cover the basis of everything without making this a 40-minute video. So if you have any specific questions, feel free to leave it in the comment box below, and I will get back to you guys as quickly as possible. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, please make sure to subscribe. It is absolutely free. I'm bringing some bomb content, and I don't want you guys to miss any of my videos. So make sure to hit the notification bell over on the side as well. And to follow me over on Snap and IG. And into the next video. I'll talk to all of you huns later. Bye.
Motivate, 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 get money, motivate, motivate, motivate.